Welcome back, everyone, to another interview with the PGL Season 18 coaches. Today, we have someone who's a long-time veteran of the PGL. I'm not even sure when he started, probably definitely here before me. When I asked him about other accolades that I could mention in the intro, he said, and I quote, "Oh, hell nah, lol." So, no other accolades to mention, at least for now, but an absolute fantastic player. Ari Jimo, how are you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Happy to chat draft with you.
Same.
Perfect. Okay. So as I'll say in all these videos, PGL Season 18, low tier, Nat Dex. Cut moves are allowed outside of Hidden Power and Pursuit. And the Terra caps are like low tier, and the budget was tight. So Arijimo, how did you feel about your round one pick and your round two pick? If you want to talk about kind of that wheel, I know you were kind of in the late middle of the draft, so you had to wait, see some good things go. Did you get what you wanted to start with, or did you kind of have to pivot immediately? What was kind of your plan going in here?
Uh, Drafts usually, the start of drafts usually are the roughest for me because uh, I live in India.
Mm-hmm.
The time zone does not align very well with the draft community.
That's
So
fair.
every time the draft starts, it's about 2 to 3 a.m. for me, which sucks. I did make a mistake during that because when I was looking at the draft board, there were a few ones that I thought were clear-cut favorites. One of them was Rotom Wash, which I think is absolutely one of the strongest Pokemons on the board, and something that if it were to be banned, I would not have been shocked at all.
Mm-hmm.
My initial idea, like my first pick was Mega Camera, which I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite Mega Pokemons. It's just so insanely strong.
Nice. Yes, it is.
But my initial plan was to have a core of Mega Camera, Proton Wash, Celebi,
Mm-hmm.
which like in itself is insanely strong, and I thought that it would allow me to craft something better.
Yeah.
Granted, I did not realize how short on budget we were because I had not taken a proper look before the draft started.
Mm-hmm.
But given the draft started at around 4 a.m. for me, I messed up massively. And instead of picking up Rotom Wash, picked one, I picked up Mega Camera, which I'm assuming would have made it back to me after the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But Rotom Wash did not. So had to pivot and take Alomola instead as my round two mon, which
Huh.
I'm not too sad about. But
Mm-hmm.
definitely, if it was Rotom Wash, the insane synergy between Rotom Wash and Mega Camera.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Rotom Wash will levitate, the water resist,
Yeah.
Camera taking care of everything that Rotom Wash cannot. And then
Mm-hmm.
if I could have gotten Celebi with it, which currently is undrafted, which I think is one of the few ones that I would have expected to be picked up.
Mm-hmm.
So that did suck because ultimately I had to pivot my entire draft because of that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm still not sad about what I have. I think it's a cool team. It's a team of mons that I've not really used a lot before, apart from my one
Mm-hmm.
and Mega Camera. I'm kind of excited.
Right, yeah. Honestly, that's kind of funny. So it seems like Eltras started a chain reaction by taking your Rotom Wash. You took Pingu's Alamamola because he was hoping that got back to him round two, which I don't blame you at all for thinking Rotom Wash would survive to round two because it's a great Pokemon. I wouldn't call it a round one pick, even in low tier. Just personally speaking, it's fantastic as a teammate for Camera, but it's not like when you think of a round one pick, you kind of think of your centerpiece Pokemon, the thing you're building around. And Rotom is usually a really good support that helps you build around, like Camerupt, right? So I think you were perfectly fine in your thinking there. It's just you couldn't really expect one of the three people after you to immediately scoop up Rotom Wash. So it's tough, but honestly, I think you were covered really well. I think Alamamola is a fantastic pairing for Camerupt. And one Pokemon I want to learn a little more about, I've always been a big fan of it, is the Terra Kling Klang. And Kling Klang in historic National Dex drafts, we have left out all cut moves, right? Which makes Kling
Yeah.
Klang relatively useless because it can't use Gear Grind because of the way Nat Dex works. So tell me a little about your thinking as a fellow Terra Steel, like a Steel type Terra Captain user. Tell me your thinking on picking up that Kling Klang and how you think it's going to help support your team.
Uh, Clink Clang, the idea behind Clink Clang when I picked it was so when I picked up Camera and Alola, one of the biggest issues from that was that uh, I needed something that would enjoy the amount of chip Mega Camera forces onto teams.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so there were a few pieces that I really wanted. One was something that was really fast, which I picked up later on. There was
Right.
another thing that I really wanted was something that had fast encore, just so Olomola is not a setup bait.
Yeah.
And ever since it got flip turn, which is like allows it to be a slow pivot,
Mm-hmm.
an encore mon is absolutely necessary with it.
Yes.
Uh, Given that those two mons that I later picked up, I think fairly comfortable leaving them on the board.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted something that could offensively do damage physically.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like even if Clink Clank does not come to the games, the sheer amount of prep that it like needs from
Mm-hmm.
opponents due to it being a captain and it being able to set up, which
Yeah.
with free Terra is very strong, I think, is something that I thought was necessary for me to pick up earlier
Mm-hmm.
so that it did not get sniped on longer wheel on the other side of the draft.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There were few. Uh, there was another mon that I was looking at instead of Clink Clang, which was Huntail, which gets Shell Smash and Cantera, and I think that is absolutely insanely strong.
Mm-hmm.
But I was not super comfortable in leaving types on the board that and doubling up on just pure water.
Yeah.
Because if I do not want to Terra in a particular game, I still need the base types. So instead I went for Clink Clang.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's totally fair. So Huntel, I think one of the reasons that it didn't get picked up may be because where it is a Nat Dexmon, it doesn't actually get Terra Blast. So even though it can turn into any type, it doesn't necessarily get the coverage it needs out of that type. So maybe I feel like that shied a few people away from it. Otherwise, I think it would be like the best Terra Cap on the board. But for Kling Klang, like you could obviously Terra Steel really boost those gear grinds. You have, I believe it gets clear body, so you can't easily get like intimidated. You can't get parting shotted on. None of those shenanigans. You can easily Terra into things like the dark type to avoid prankster hits. You could Terra into electric to boost your electric moves, normal to boost your return that comes back. So you've just got fantastic options. And I think Kling Klang has a couple other nice tools that people forget about. It's got that Volt Switch. It can easily be a pivot. They bring in their physically defensive Pokemon, like their water type, to take a steel type move from you or to be ready to eat a shift gear, and you just Volt Switch out and you just keep that cycle going. You keep that mega camera up coming in and out. I love it. I think it's a fantastic piece for your team. I think another thing people forget about, Kling Klang gets Trick Room. So if you wanted to get camera up going, you set up Trick Room Volt Switch, and you've got 3 turns of a Mega Camera Up that outspeeds everything, which in low tier, I don't know how much can handle a hit from Mega Camera Up.
Yeah, I absolutely love the idea of Clink Clang. I am highly skeptical of how it will be in practice because, like, inherently, my thought process of Clink Clang is it not being a great Pokemon, which it goes out of the window because this is a low tier draft with a extremely congested budget, so it can still put in work.
Yes.
But I'm hopeful. A lot of the sentiment behind this team is me being hopeful around a lot of these mons. But I'm excited. This is not usually how I draft. This is not usually the mons I draft. So I'm kind of excited to see how it goes.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes too, because you definitely got some what I would call off meta picks, but they're all strong, and I think you've done really well with the synergy going on. So normally I would say we could kind of summarize the team, but I do have one more Pokemon to ask about because it's one that
Mhm.
always catches my eye. Is something I'll see a person take it as a Terra Captain every once in a while. I'll see people take it. I haven't really seen it pop that much, but it gets some of the most interesting moves and coverage. And that's your Hisuian Decidueye. You picked it up pretty late in the draft, round 8, as a 13-point Pokemon. So you got to kind of wait and spend that money late, which is good. So tell me your thinking going in on that. That's another one that I think is super unique, gives you another pivot. But what else you think? What was your reasoning behind grabbing that one so late?
So one of the issues that I felt when I was drafting in the earlier parts of my draft was the sheer amount of defensive burden that I have on Alomomola.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing was a lot of the defensive burden that Noivern also had, which was Noivern being the sole Pokemon on my team that I felt comfortable into ground types.
Mm-hmm.
Alomomola also being the only Pokemon that was comfortable into water types in my entire draft,
Right.
especially when you consider Scald,
Mm-hmm.
because it can burn my other Pokemons, which is not super great. So I wanted a grass type. Something that I was also low on was rock resist, because obviously if I'm bringing Klinklang to a game, I am expecting it to have minimum defensive requirements in the plan going into the game. So
Mm-hmm.
having my steel type as the only rock resist, which I like looking back, there are not a lot of offensive rock types that have been drafted, but I was thinking someone might end up drafting something along the lines of Lichen Rock or
Yeah,
something similar, but that did not end up being the thing. But it's still good to cover the bases. So I wanted
absolutely.
a fighting type as well. I wanted something that could remove the hazards on my side of the thing. Rapid spinners were, uh, to put it lightly, not ideal. So I just
Mm-hmm.
went for the next best thing, which was Defogger.
Yeah.
So after all of that, his Decidueye ended up being the only Pokemon that fit the bill.
You're right.
And it being a mixed attacker is also something that helps my team, because at the end of the day, it is still my one of my primary scars for Jins.
Mm-hmm.
So it being able to utilize its special attack, Leaf Storm, etc., is something that is still helpful for me.
Yeah.
Overall, there's a lot of things going for it. Again, that is another one, like I said, for Klinklang, not something that I'm super comfortable in, not
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm super confident in. But it has so many tools, and I'm so excited for it that even during days, I thought about dropping it, but
Mm-hmm.
then I decided it back, and I was like, I'm going to use it for the entire event, even if it ends up being absolute doo doo.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, I like it. I think your style of drafting is very unique. The way you've talked about how you need these certain defensive types, you want these certain pieces and switch-ins. It's a very thoughtful approach to draft. I think it's very interesting looking at your team. Your two Terra Caps kind of take each other's roles because traditionally Steel type is a defensive type, but you've got Kling Kling here as like they would offensively Terra more often than not, and then you've got Lunatone with one of the worst defensive types in the game, but decent stats and levitate. So you could very easily bring Lunatone and just Terra Steel it, and it suddenly is a defensive Steel type immune to ground moves. So I really like your kind of dichotomy going in there. I'm sure we could dissect this team for forever, but just in general, I would ask: are you happy with the way your team turned out? Did any more Pokemon? I know you Rotom Wash got taken really early. After that, did you see any other Pokemon go that you were wanting, or did you pretty much end up with everything you wanted at the end?
There were not mons that I was sniped on. There were a ton of mons that I just did not end up having budget for,
Mm-hmm.
because there was not a lot of points going around. Few mons that I think obviously I've previously mentioned Celebi was something that is still undrafted. That is something that I think is very, very, very good with Mega Camera. Uh, I've tried multiple iterations, but I never seem to be able to fit Celebi because just the amount 18 is a lot of points in this draft.
Yes.
Because and I've said this before we started even drafting, Cosmo was 2 points. It learns a total of 3 moves. None of them are offensive moves.
Yeah.
And that thing is 2 points. The budget is extremely constraining.
Yes.
So it is difficult. Like, usually you plan around the high end tier mons so that you pick them, and then your low ends are whatever fits the bill of something that is missing in your team.
Mm-hmm.
But while doing this draft, I ended up cherry picking the low tier mons
Mm-hmm.
and then filling whatever I needed from rest of the high tier mons because I thought that they are still usable. Something that another mon that I really wanted if Celebi got sniped, but I am now logged into my Hisigen Decidui train.
Mm-hmm.
So I will not end up having is Thwacky.
Oh yeah.
But the idea of Thwacky is obviously the grassy terrain means that the only weakness that essentially Mega Camera ends up having is a water type disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives it nature power, I think. Nature power is the name of the move, which turns into energy ball in grassy terrain,
Yeah.
which gives it coverage to hit water type Pokemons.
That's kind of a crazy call out, actually. Yeah, that's really true. Huh.
That is something that I do in normal Nat decks when I end up having to draft Mega Camera with Rillaboom, which is what I thought I should do with Thwacky in low tier. But 8 Thwacky is 10 points, which is so expensive.
Yeah.
And it is not a proper, again, it's a physical grass type. It is not a proper Skull Switch in, which was very difficult to get in because I don't want Alola to be burnt either because that takes away a lot of its survivability away from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another potential mon that I wanted to switch was Morgrim into evolving into Grimmsnarl, but again, Grimmsnarl was very expensive.
Yeah. I mean, I think Morgrim, I've been using it so much lately. I can't tell you why, but it is such good value. And as you said, Cosmo, 3 moves, no offensive moves, 2 points. So getting a mon with as much utility as Morgrim for only 4 points, I think is a really solid take on this draft. I'm
hoping it can take the attacks that I'm hoping it to take. But if not, it is what it is. I'll have to manage. It being my only dark and fairy is not the ideal case scenario, but that's what Terra is for.
Exactly.
That's what I'm convincing myself.
No, that's totally fair. I think Morgrim can definitely do its job, which is very unique. Maybe it doesn't necessarily fit the role of a dark or fairy type, but I think, like you said, you've got those Terras, you can patch up the holes as you need. And yeah, I think it's a super solid, tight draft. So looking at some of the other drafts in the league, I know a schedule came out. I don't know if you've had a chance to review it yet, but are there any other teams that you're either excited or scared of in this upcoming season to play against?
Right. I think a lot of the teams are really strong. One of the teams that I absolutely love the high end of is your team.
Thank you.
The only 2 mons that I am skeptical of is Lopunny and Tentacool. I don't think drafting a 1-point mon in this board is essentially saying that I'm drafting 9 mons, which is I think completely fair and fine. Lopunny also has some things going for it. I think the ability to Healing Wish in a pinch is super useful for your team. Aggron and Executor being the Terra captains is I think I'm looking at the ground dog. It does not show the Terra captains, but I'm assuming it's Aggron and Executor.
It is, yeah.
And Pacific Legion is, I think, broken in this game.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, I mean, we kind of had the same idea. I got the Executor, which was just budget Celebi with Terra to patch up that U-turn weakness. And then you caught on to my plan. I was hoping no one looked at Lopunny and said, that's going to be a Healing Wish mon. I was hoping everybody's like, oh, that thing's useless. I'm not going to even think about it. And then I could get a cheese, like, full heal off on my Terra Aggron or my Basket Legion. So I can't believe you've already
Post
caught on.
production.
Yeah, we'll cut that. We'll cut that. Don't put that in the final cut. Yeah. Any other teams are standing out to you right now?
uh, I think IGL Mojo's team is uh, it's fun. It's interesting. I think Red Ogrepon and Regidraco are doing God's work on that team.
Mm-hmm.
But that team is something that I saw it pick up Tingler, which I thought was very, very good Terra captain.
Mm-hmm.
I There's also Killer J's team, which like when he picked up Haxorus, we had a little chat about what he should go about picking,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Gallerizing is an insanely good pairing with it.
Yes,
The Terra
absolutely.
captains they have is also really, really good.
Yeah,
1 point more growth is insane value.
I know he probably has my favorite Terra captains of the season. Like they're all three. They do so much work for how cheap they were.
Right.
So yeah.
I like a lot of the teams. I Obviously it is a low tier draft with difficult budgets, so there are a lot of mons that you usually don't ever see getting drafted,
Mm-hmm.
which are being drafted not only as a side piece to the team, but actually an integral part of the team. Because if we like looking at Benny's team, Walrein, a 6 point mon Walrein is an important part of the team which never gets drafted in anything.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really exciting.
That's a really cool call out, actually. Yeah, I was interested because he has the double water Terra, so he gets rid of one of his water types, but they both benefit so much from that Terra that I think it's totally justified. So yeah, I like that too. Let me see. So we talked about it a little bit. I know Celebi is obviously a mon you think is very valuable, but maybe a bit expensive. But no one took it, right? It's huge value. I know at least two people who had considered it in their plans and just ended up. Grass and Psychic are so common in low tier. I think they ended up going with cheaper options. But is there anything else? Doesn't necessarily have to be high tier, but is there anything else on the board that stands out to you as kind of crazy that no one took it, that it's still standing undrafted?
I think Nidoqueen is one of the best mons point blank period on the board.
Mm-hmm.
It is not even one of the max point mon. The amount of utility that Nidoqueen brings to the board just by being a mon, it's not just defensive, its offensive output is also highly underrated. Sheer Force is one of the most broken abilities.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a mon not being drafted at all is a massive, massive shock to me.
Yeah.
At one point, I did consider during Grace about dropping Mega Camera for Nidoqueen and entirely revamping my team.
Wow.
But I have to stay committed to the cause and stick with Mega Camera.
Mm-hmm.
Put my money where my mouth is and stick with it for the entire draft.
Mm-hmm.
2 point Wobbuffet. I'm not entirely sure if the shadow tag is banned or not.
I believe it is, unfortunately. I believe Shadow Tag is
then-
banned.
I don't know. Then Wobbuffet being 2 point is too expensive.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
That coughing is a decent mon at 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
One one that I was genuinely looking at was the 4 point Terra Captain Carnivine, which I'm very sad that I did not end up picking because I am so hard stuck on my Hisuian Decidueye train, locked in. My seatbelts are locked with keys. But Carnivine is something that I was contemplating for a long time picking up, but I did not end up picking it up. I think that is massive value.
Mm-hmm.
I think in 2 point there is Meditite, which has scary amount of damage output that people do not realize on it. And I think Primer in 2 point is a really good Terra captain.
Yeah, yeah,
It has sticky
absolutely.
hold. It has good stats for being normal, like 2.1. It has 80 attack, 80 defense, 80 speed F, I think.
Hmm.
It has sticky hold, so you cannot get rid of its knockoff. So knock off its Eviolite, so its bulk remains intact regardless, which I
Yes,
think is very good for it. Obviously, low point mons, everything that can set up
yeah,
sticky webs is good.
that's
One
a
point
yeah.
mon that I think is really good is Strudel.
True.
Its
Yeah,
prankster mon,
I considered
it
Trudel.
is on god.
Yeah, I needed a 1 point poison. I ended up going with Tentacool because I don't have another spinner. But Trudel was on my short list, because I think Prankster is one of the best abilities for a low tier mon to have.
Yeah, because prankster allows your mon to always have something to do.
Hmm.
If you're forced to bring it, it always has something to do. It has prankster switcheroo, so you can trick some choice band, choice scarf to something that does not want it. It has prankster parting shot, which is a great uh like thing to get your offensive pieces in. It has prankster encore, so it is not a setup bait.
Yeah,
It has a good immunity in Ghost. It has a good immunity in like Toxics, which I think is strong in the meta because there's not a lot of clerics that are reliable enough to be brought to every game.
definitely.
So it is something, and it also has Toxic. Does it have Toxic Spikes? I think it does not have Toxic Spikes.
And it does not, because Grafii
It
doesn't
does not, which
either.
is sad.
If it
That's
was,
sad. But
yeah, it'd probably be 2 points if it had Toxic Spikes. It'd be too good for that 1 point tier. But yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it
I
is
wish I
so
could have
good.
drafted it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we'll have another low tier roll around maybe 3 years or so, or if you get crazy and you decide your team's not working, you can go back to the drawing board, pick up that Strudel, grab the Celebi or the Carnivine, and rework everything if you really felt like it. So we'll see how you do. I feel like you're going to do really well this season. I love the thoughtfulness going into this, like I said earlier. So that kind of concludes our interview. But if I had one more question for you, are there any final thoughts, things you want to say to your fellow coaches, to the viewers? Let the people know how you're feeling before we close out.
I really like a lot of these teams. These are not teams. A lot of the way these teams have been drafted is not how I would draft, but they, like, if you give thought to it, they work really well.
Hmm.
So I am high level color me impressed. These teams are so much better than what I initially thought the
Hmm.
draft board would warrant ending up being. So I'm really excited to play this season. This is going to be really fun. These are mons that never get to shine and that are going to be used regularly on that. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
exactly. Yeah, I love it. I'm super impressed with everybody too. I think there are no horrible teams here, no bad teams, I would say. Everybody's got, there's some good intentions with every team. And I'm excited to see how everyone does. I'm excited to see how you do this season. Thank you for joining me. And we will see you all in the next video.
Thank you.